Hi, this is Beth Palmer, and welcome to my presentation, Investigating the Effects of Unequal Access to Technology on Middle School African American Children. This is a qualitative study of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students in the Chicago public school system. Introduction. It has been found that learners with limited access to technology that strengthen learning outcomes are adversely impacted in their educational growth. A lot of students at a very early age are consuming technology, but in a more passive way and not necessarily actively engaged in a learning context. So these students may have little to no access to the robust internet connection and other devices that encourage academic achievement. Zhang et al. Found that many learners are exposed to mobile devices. They say as early as middle school, but I would hazard a guess to say it's much earlier than that. I have a 2-year-old nephew who has an iPad, and he is able to consume content that's relevant for his age. And he also has a way of saying, hey, Google, find this for me. And Google does this. So students are consuming technology at very, very early ages today. And technology, as McCarthy et al. Noted, when used early can create more educational opportunities. And the goal for the future is to position these students in a way that they will be able to consume technology, be creators of technology, because this is the way that the world works nowadays. It's very much technology driven, and it's important that our students are able to keep up. McKenna found that urban growth, so inner cities, presents challenges on how learners are educated, and it's also challenging in the way that educators are delivering content to these students. It's been found that students from low socioeconomic status backgrounds have limited access as opposed to their counterparts who are from a bit more affluent backgrounds. And as the research notes, there exists a cycle among the problems of economic stability, educational inequity, and limited access to technology to support learning. All these things are intertwined. So this research, I'd like to investigate the challenges that many of our inner city families experience as they manage everyday life. So limited access to technology may not be at the forefront of what it is that they need or what they're concerned with. When families are in poverty, the first concern is to eat before learning can occur. And so a lot of the things that we are finding in research is that true to Bandura's hierarchy of needs, we need to address those basic needs first before we can move to the next level. So students need to be clothed and fed and things like that before we can talk about their access to technology. Research questions that I would like to include in my report. How can technology support learners' success? How can we shape the technology that we deliver to students to ensure they are successful? Question number 2, how do middle school age African American students experience technology in the home? Are they just passive consumers of technology? Are they watching video games and being involved in video games? Are they consuming technology in an educational context? Number 3, what barriers exist to providing technology to the middle school age African American student? So once again, are they fed? Are they clothed? Is that a barrier to them learning? Is that a barrier to them having access to technology? Is that barrier just affordability? Is it a matter of economics? Is it a matter of service being accessible in those areas to those students? Those are the questions that we want to tackle. The conceptual framework here is access to technology for the middle school student in the Chicago public school systems. We'd like to mitigate the lack of access by using technologies to support the learners and accessing technology not only in a passive way, but for educational purposes to ensure student academic success and achievement. The pedagogical connectivism method learning theory is going to be utilized for this research. And so the connectivism theory posits that knowledge is built on prior knowledge or constructed. So Harrison explained that scaffolding, for example, underscores that point, which gives learners context, provides motivation, and gives them a foundation to be progressive in the educational content that's presented to them. And so to take advantage of these principles, technology is paramount. It's the most important part of that because it's a technology driven world. And so connectivism theory considers those challenges that are experienced by both the learners and the educators, both in and outside the classroom. The data collection measures that I will use are interviews. I wanted to talk to parents. I want to talk to students. For the most part, I'm going to talk to students. I'm going to talk to about 15 to 20 students and ask those questions on their level. And I also, as the research grows, would like to talk to parents and to teachers and educators and administrators. I'll use Excel to capture that data and then extrapolate the data using in vivo 12 software. The interview questions that I would like to propose are the ages of the students in the home. How long has a student had access to technology? Are they like my nephew, where they're 2 years old? Or are they a little bit older? Are they middle school age? Describe the ways that technology could better support the student. I want to know from the students and the parents, how can we better support you with technology? It's easy to provide technology to students. And a good example is during the COVID-19 pandemic, Chicago Public Schools spent millions of dollars sending iPads home and things like that to students, Google Chromebooks. But if they didn't know how to use it or didn't have the means to connect with the internet, it did them no good. So we want to know how we could better support those students. I want them to describe how access to technology in home has helped or hindered their student. And that leads me to number 5, to describing any barriers to providing technology to the student. What are the barriers? Is it, as I mentioned earlier, economics? Is it location? We want to know all those things. The social justice and equity component of the study. Murphy 2020 found that issues of technology education can be attributed to issues of equity. People in low socioeconomic backgrounds who experience poverty are least likely to be engaged with technology. They're most likely to have their performance adversely affected by the lack of access to technology. Why are we here? What's the significance of this study? Well, this research is important because learners who don't have access to the technology tools that will help them have better outcomes are adversely impacted, and we want to mitigate that. Nelson Mandela said there is no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. And we want to start in our research and in our follow up and have make our goal, chief goal, to better support our children, whether it's through technology, whether it's through things that they need, basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, so that we can get them to the place they need to be for themselves, for their families, and for society, and for our future. Thank you. And here are my references. Thank you for listening.